You're addicted to being seen. When did that start? Every post you craft, every carefully worded text, every room you enter where you adjust your posture just slightly. You're not building strength. You're outsourcing it. And the worst part? It feels like confidence. It feels like you're doing the work. But Marcus Aurelius would look at you with those piercing, amber eyes and see straight through to what you've become. A hollow version of yourself, painted over with other people's approval. Here's what's actually happening. You think the problem is that you care too much what others think. You've diagnosed it already. You tell yourself you need thicker skin, more discipline, less sensitivity to criticism. But that's not what's destroying you. The real damage isn't happening when someone criticizes you and it stings. The real damage is happening every single time someone validates you and you feel that little spark of relief. That moment when they like your idea, agree with your point, laugh at your joke, and something in your chest unclenches. That's not connection. That's a hit, and you're building your entire sense of self on a foundation that requires constant feeding from sources you can't control. The Stoics called this living as a slave, not to a person but to fortune, to the whims of others. Marcus wrote in his private journals that the opinions of others are like shadows on a wall. They change shape with every shift of light. And yet we spend our lives trying to control them, arrange them, make them look the way we want. He saw through it 2,000 years ago. The question is, can you see it now? By the end of this, you'll know exactly why. Validation feels like strength, but functions like poison, and what to do about it before it hollows you out completely. Dante Cross used to check his phone 47 times a day. Not for messages, for proof. Proof that the workout video landed. Proof that his insight mattered. Proof that he existed in a way that registered. He had the sharp jawline, the scar cutting through his left eyebrow from a fight he'd won. The discipline of someone who woke at 5 and trained before the world stirred. From the outside, he looked like a man who needed nothing from anyone. But inside was a different story. There was this moment, 3 months into his Stoic practice, where it all came apart. He'd posted something he thought was profound, a reflection on discipline, on strength, on what it means to stand alone. He knew it was good, felt it in his bones. And then, silence. Hours of silence. He watched the metrics barely move. No flood of comments. No surge of recognition. And something strange happened in his body. His chest tightened. His thoughts started spiraling. Maybe it wasn't as good as he thought. Maybe he'd miscalculated. Maybe he was losing his edge, his audience, his relevance. Maybe the algorithm had turned against him, or worse, maybe people had simply stopped caring about what he had to say. He caught himself refreshing. Once. Twice. A third time. And then he stopped. Because he finally saw it. He wasn't checking for engagement. He was checking to see if he still existed. If he mattered. If he was real. The post wasn't an expression. It was a question he was asking the void. Am I enough? And he was waiting for strangers to answer. That's when he heard Marcus's voice in his head, not as from a book, but as a question the old emperor might have asked him directly. If no one saw this, would you still have written it? And Dante realized he didn't know the answer. Worse, he realized that almost nothing he did passed that test anymore. His training videos, would he still train that way if no camera existed? His reflections, were they truly his thoughts? Or were they thoughts shaped into the form most likely to be seen, shared, validated? He'd spent a year building what looked like strength, but he'd built it on a stage, and the stage required an audience. Without them, the whole thing felt empty. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, commanded armies, held the power of life and death over millions. And in his private journals, he reminded himself daily that none of that made him more valuable as a human being, that the opinions of the crowd, even a crowd of senators and generals, were just noise, that his worth wasn't up for vote. Dante had none of that power. But he'd given away something far more valuable, the ability to know his own worth without checking the scoreboard. The trap isn't that you care what people think. The trap is that you've made their approval the arbiter of your reality. You've turned yourself into a hypothesis that requires constant validation to remain true. And every time you get that validation, it feels like proof. But it's not making you stronger. It's making you dependent. The muscle atrophies. The one that says, I know what I am, regardless of what you see. That muscle is dying from disuse. And the weaker it gets, the more you need external proof just to feel like yourself, just to make it through the day without that gnawing sense that something essential is missing. Dante started training it the hard way. He wrote things he didn't post, trained without filming, had conversations where he said what he actually thought instead of what would land well. And it felt like walking through withdrawal. That urge to share, to be seen, to convert the private moment into public proof. It screamed at him. But he sat with it, let it burn. And slowly, something shifted. He started to feel solid again. Not hollow. Not performed. Real. Here's what you do. Next time you feel that urge to share something, to get validation, to turn a private moment into proof, pause, just 5 seconds, and ask yourself Marcus's question. If no one saw this, would I still value it? If the answer is yes, then share it or don't. It doesn't matter, because you've already anchored to something real. But if the answer is no, or if you're not sure, that's your signal. That's the moment you're about to feed the trap. Don't. Let the moment stay private. Let your worth stay yours. Now that you see it, it gets worse.